Welcome everybody to Talk That Talk,
Taking
where we have the unfiltered, unscripted, uncomfortable conversation. All right. All right. Welcome everybody to Talk That Talk, where we have the unfiltered, unscripted, uncomfortable conversation about band, HBCU band culture, music education, and more. Let me go ahead and introduce the original panel before we bring in our special guest today. So to my right, we have Maya.
Hey y'all.
All right, and under that, with the fresh cut, we got Quan. All right, maybe 2 weeks, a weekend. 1 week. All right. Hey man, it still look good. The edge up is still looking good, man. Edge up is edge up, and I don't know that, whatever.
Appreciate it, bro. How y'all doing today?
Man, I am good. I am happy to be alive. I thank God for it, man. So before we get into this, man, so obviously we always talk about what's happening in the band world right now, but I don't even know if there's anything happening in the band world right now. Somebody fill me in. Matter of fact, I'm back on social media, but not like normal. Like I ain't like social median, but I'm on social media. But yeah, man, what's going on in the music world, if anything? Quan, what you got?
I do want to shout out our boy BJ. He's having a drumline competition in the Dallas DFW area January 21st. It's going to be real nice. My drumline DMB, they'll be participating. I know there's other drumlines, Jack Yates, Huntington, who's from Atlanta. He put out a list this past week, so it is going to be something nice. Last year was really good. Honestly, one of the best drumline competitions that I've ever been to. So we want to support that brother in his endeavors.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, you kind of already put it out there. I was gonna say, man, well, let's get us the information, man. We can throw it up and talk about it or whatever, but you kind of just talked about it anyway. So,
yeah. But I'll send the flyer to you so you can post it.
Okay. All right. Maya, what you got? You got what ears you got on today? I don't know what that is, but it looks nice. Looks like
the bear.
Koala bear. Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
You ain't even know what you sipping on.
Water.
H2O. Okay, see, I tried. I mean, we close to the weekend. It's hump day, man. You gotta get it in.
No, that ain't nothing but water.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and do this, man. So today is a super special day. We have a special guest with us who is no stranger to the show, obviously, but he is also my former director at Norfolk State University. And I think this is like really good coming off the heels of what happened with the Spartan Legion and the Rose Bowl, but he has his own thing that he is doing as well. He has a new book out, and we want to not only make sure that we show support for the book, but we also want to give him the opportunity to come in, talk about the book, and then we're going to ask as many questions as we possibly can. That's going to allow for his time. So what I'm going to do early, I'm going to do this super early. I only do this on special occasions. I'm going to open up the room early so that, other people on the outside can be able to come in and get their chances to ask whatever questions they want to ask. But before we do that, let's go ahead and bring him in. Dr. O'Neal Sanford. Let's welcome Dr. Sanford to the panel.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're here with Dr. Sanford, and we're going to have the opportunity to be able to ask him these questions and all the things that we want to be able to talk about. I know a lot of people were like, man, why y'all starting a little bit late? We wanted to make sure that we got Dr. Sanford straight. All right, so he's on here now. He's good. He's ready to go. And so the first thing that we're talking about is we're going to talk about your memoir that you have released. I know that when I went on to order it at one time, it had said something like sold out. But then my wife pulled it up, and then she was like, "No, it ain't sold out." So we did order ours. It's on the way. The beauty of it is Quan has his right now. He's reading. He's going through it. Look at it. He's highlighted some things. So the first thing I want to do is be able to give you the opportunity just to be able to talk about your memoirs and, you know, the reason why you wrote it and so on and so forth. So, Doc, you got the floor.
All right, thanks a lot. This whole idea came up about 2 months after I retired from Jackson State University. My son, who passed away back about 13 months ago, Christopher, had been in my ear about writing my memoir, and I would say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna get it done. Yeah, blah blah blah," you know. And so he passed on. After he passed on, a couple of weeks afterwards, I was sitting in his studio. Right now, I'm using his Mac because my PC's gone now, and this Mac is kicking my butt because it's a whole nother animal for me. I'm still old school. But sitting in his studio and just kind of reflecting and you know, chilling, and then I remembered that he had asked me about doing my memoir, and I just flipped my seat around and started typing, and you know, on it. His whole thing was reason for dad. You know, I think that kids from a neighborhood like you came from, a community you came from, would need to be able to read and hear about a guy that started really late in music. As a matter of fact, most people don't know, and used to be embarrassed to say it, but when I went to, in the community I grew up in, they didn't have a middle school. They only had elementary school and high school. That's the time. That's way back in the time. And so when I left elementary school and went to high school, I went to the band room because I had been hanging around down in New Orleans every summer with my aunt, and would go over to Louis Armstrong Park and hear the trombones, you know, hear all of the brass bands play. And, you know, that was always, you know, fun for me. And I look forward to it every summer, but we didn't have music in the elementary school. So when I went to high school, I went straight to the band room and said, I want to join the band. And she said, okay. It was a lady and band director, a female band director. And she said, what do you want to play? I said, well, I want to play, you know, the trombone. And she said, well, will your parents buy you an instrument? But I got to give you a test. So she gave me a test, a hearing test. I passed that. And just, I read tone recognition. And she gave me a rhythm test. And she was actually beating on the piano. Does this rhythm appear this way? And is this the same rhythm as that? And she made some things, and I flunked the rhythm test. And they wouldn't let me in band she didn't let me in band my freshman year. And then she got pregnant and had to go on maternity leave, and a new band director came. When he came in, I walked over to the band room and told him I wanted to join band. He said, will your parents buy you an instrument? I said, I'm not sure. He said, wait after school and I'll drive you home, which he did. I was now 10th grade in high school, and he drove me home, had dinner with us, and told my dad about it. And my dad looked at me and said, hey, son, you really want to do this? I said, yes. He said, you know my rule. And his rule was, once you start a project, you don't quit. You know, if you commit to it, you're going to stay with it. So I said yes, and with that same day, we got up and went to Sears Roebuck and bought me a used trombone for $75. I mean, and the bell of the trombone at that time, the instrument of bow was probably about an inch larger than a trumpet bell. It was really, really small bow, but that's what they could afford to buy at that time. So I bought the trombone, and I excelled the first year, and then became the president of the band. And there was some perks to the band. Of course, I joined for the wrong reason. The perk for the band is once you became the president of the, you were the drum major, you could ride on the back of the bus with the majorettes. So my intentions were wrong. And but anyway, I became, at the end of my sophomore year, going into my junior year in high school, I was president of the band uh, organization, and then of course, uh, after I graduated from high school, I went the following 2 weeks after I graduated. It was time to go to summer school at Southern, so I didn't have a lot of confidence because I started late on the instrument. Basically, I started 10th grade is very late, and I went down to Southern, but I had excelled in industrial arts, and my industrial art teacher had encouraged me to become an engineer and a builder. So I registered in engineering when I went to Southern University my first summer, and then my high school band director heard, through the grapevine that I had registered in instrumentals. As an engineer at Southern. So he got in his car in New Orleans and drove up to Baton Rouge and went to my house where my mom was, got my mom and my trombone, and they came to the campus and found me and encouraged me to go and audition, for music. So I went and auditioned, passed the audition, and I changed my major from engineering to music education to be a band director. And that was my first summer. So that all of that stuff kind of, got going. And I wrote about that intensely, the community that I came up in. If you've got the book, you'll read about that. My family, the whole bit. My mom was a pianist, but she had 5 children and she taught school, night and day school and the whole bit. So she'd help me out a little bit on the piano. I ended up landing a job at our home church as the pianist for the junior choir. My mom showed me what she could show me, but I really couldn't read music, very well, especially piano score. I could not do that, but she taught me what she could taught me. So I got into and started playing piano for the junior choir, and that didn't last, too long because I started playing with a blues band very soon, making a little bit of. I think we were making like 10 or 12 bucks, a gig. That was a lot of money back in the day. They would buy me a couple of used tires for the car when they would blow out weekly. And so I started doing that. But the unique thing that happened, I don't know how far you want me to go with this, Julian. I'm going to leave it open for some questions too. But to tell this short story of my short, career as a pianist ended when one of the stewardesses at the church was actually at a juke joint that we were playing at on a Saturday night. And I mean, she was having a ball, dancing on the table and doing the whole bit, in a juke joint. And Sunday morning, after the gig was over, I got up and went to church and played for the choir. And at the end of service, the minister said, "I want to see you back in the chamber." The deacons wanted to see me. And so I went. I was surprised, and I went back there. And then the head deacon said, "Sanford, we've got heard the news that you had been playing for the devil, music for the devil, and we're gonna need to make a decision about what you're gonna do. You're gonna play for the devil, or you're gonna play for God." And at the time, I just told him, I acknowledged, I'm playing for them. But like I said, I was making 10 or 12 bucks, with the sometimes 15 bucks with the blues band, and the church was paying me $5. And a difference of $6, $7, $10 back in the day was good money. So he said, "You're gonna have to, are you gonna play for the devil, or are you gonna play, for God?" And I said, "Well, I don't know who I'm going to play for, but I want to continue, with the blues band because it's a great difference." And I explained to him the difference. He said, "Okay." And I said, "Well, then we're going to have to let you go." So I made the decision to play for the devil, and that ended my piano career very quickly. And then, of course, I, continued to do that all the way through high school. I met, some of my lifetime friends like Paul I. Adams, and we've been colleagues that we met at 17 years of age, and we're still together. the long relationship, and that's kind of how I got started, and that's how I ended up writing the book. So I started writing about all of that, thinking about the fact that my son had pressed me to do it, and it was quite emotional, and it's something that I recommend that everyone will do. I mean, uh, it was the first time in my life that I had discovered who I was and what I had been. I didn't know who I was, and I started writing the book, and all at once, at various times, I would just stop and say, "My God, I did all of this," and I started back all the traveling that I had done, and traveling abroad, and even behind the Iron Curtains in East and West Berlin before the wall came down, I was out there. I had the opportunity to go over and study with Thad Jones at the Conservatory of Music in Copenhagen, Denmark, and so that's how all of that stuff kind of emerged. So I'm open for any questions. You guys want me to keep talking? How you want to roll with this, Julian?
So I'm gonna let you know now that today is your day. So, and many times I'm gonna just kind of let you go because you're gonna provide a lot of insight, not only for music educators, not only for quote unquote band heads, but perspective into your life that we didn't know about. You were my director, and I didn't know these things about you. So this is new information for me. So so I'm gonna let you, if whatever question is asked and how deep you want to go, until you probably can't talk no more. I'm gonna just let you go ahead and do it. But I do have a question. I know you kind of answered one of them, which was what is your memoir taught about yourself, but what has your experience as a director?
My memoir, as I said earlier, is that I found out who I was. Especially when I went into the Big Ten, I happened to started my first gig at Faraday High School in Louisiana, with the band there, high school band there. I think I did a photo of it in the book, and the key for me, and I'm gonna go this way, Julian, is that I had some great mentors. My high school band director believed in me and saw something in me that I didn't have a clue that was there, and I think it was the desire to achieve. And once I dived into something, I went in 110%, and he saw that in me, to the point that after I finished my first year in at Faraday High School as the band director, he and my uh, college band director, Dr. Lovett Freeman, showed up at my house out in the country, and they were en route to the University of Michigan, to a clinic, to a band clinic. And he knew that I had never traveled out of Louisiana other than taking a trip down to FAMU for a game when I was in the band at Southern. And they came in and basically invited me to come go to Michigan with them because they wanted to expose me to another an advanced instrumental music program. Because during the period I was at Southern University, the Southern University was extremely poor. We didn't have a full instrumentated symphonic band. I had never seen or heard of an E flat or a B flat counterbass clarinet. Didn't know what it. I had seen it in a book, but naturally I didn't have it on TV, and I couldn't go online and get it because they didn't have it. But I had never heard that. So when I got to Michigan, my first summer after teaching, and I graduated from school, and I had the opportunity to play in this clinic band uh, there, and Dr. Ravelli was conducting the band. That was quite an experience, and the experience of hearing the E flat counterbass clarinet and those clarinets those instruments sitting on the bottom of that clarinet section was a total new experience for me. I heard all, man, I was like a kid in a candy store. I heard all of these overtones, and I was looking around and like shells were vibrating and people playing. I had never experienced anything like that. But the point is that those two directors, saw, something in me, and they put me in that, in that vein of, having various experiences. And when at the end of that summer session, one of my mentors had heard about a job at Mississippi Valley State College. And I was going into my second year of teaching, getting ready to go teaching, and they had recommended me to be the arranger and trombone teacher at Mississippi Valley State College, my second year. And I went up for the interview, and they had already sold Mr. Boone on who I was and where I was, in my career. And they hired me, and I had 2 years to complete my master's degree because I had an undergraduate degree. So I came in there, and I went up for 2 summers and took a semester off and completed my master's, came back, and I served as the associate director of band and arranging trombone teacher for Mississippi Valley for 5 years. And at the end of my 5th year, I became the director of bands at Mississippi Valley. At the same time, the experience that I had at Mississippi Valley, Mr. Boone, who was the director of bands at that time, went up to the chairman of the Department of Music. But this was a very unique gentleman because he was the first African American to be the drum major in the United States Navy Band, and he was very military. So my experience with him and seeing how organized he was, I mean, this guy was so square, man. He'd walk down the hallway, and if he was going to his office, he had to make a left, he would make a left flank. He was really military, guy. And he ran his organization and the band program like that. And at the time, I hated it. I thought I was, all of this, and, young, thought I knew something. I didn't really know anything, and I didn't know anything, at that time, kind of, as they say, having the fat head, just thought I was it. And so I learned so much from him, from being there. And then what I found out as I wrote the book, many of the things that I didn't like about him, I didn't understand about him when I was under, on his staff. I ended up doing those things, a lot of the things the same way he did it. And, discipline, organization in terms of, the structure of the band program and all of that kind of stuff. So I ended up staying there and doing that. And what motivated me, which moved me to the next level, was that was the first Battle of the Bands that I know about, was the International Battle of the Bands, which was held in Dallas, Texas, or in Irving, Texas, right outside of Dallas at the Cowboy Stadium, actually. And I entered the band in it my last year at Mississippi Valley, and we went in there and we won that competition. They had 5. They gave 6 trophies away. We won 6 of the trophies and won a $10,000 prize. That was the second year. And when that happened, I can't say it went viral, but in our HBC world, that was a big thing to do. So I won that competition, and then I got another call, from Virginia State College, as a result of winning that competition. And I ended up accepting a job at the university, at Virginia State College at the time. It's now Virginia State University. And so when I accepted the job there, I stayed there 3 years. It was a small program. I built the program, and from maybe about 50 kids to roughly 100, 110 students in the program. Had a good time there. And at the end of coming up to the end of my 3rd year, I was kind of sitting and having coffee with the choir director and pianist one day, and he told me about a job at the University of Minnesota. And he said, "O'Neill, there's a job at the University of Minnesota was director of the marching band and the symphonic band at the University of Minnesota. He said, I think you have the skills to go there. I said, man, are you kidding? I'm not going up to Minnesota, with in that cold weather. I'm from Louisiana. No way I'm going up there. Plus, that's a white university, a Big Ten university. They're not going to have, a black person in that position because it had never been a black director in the Big Ten or any of the PW white institutions, PWIs, at that point. And so I just kind of, after coffee, we just went different ways. I don't know how my time is and how I'm doing you in here, but I'm just kind of telling you how my career developed. So I went on, a couple of weeks later, I get a letter in the mail saying, thank you for your interest in the job at the University of Minnesota. And I said, what the hell is this? I didn't apply. I didn't write no letter, and inquired. I went down the hallway and I found my friend and I said, man, I got a letter from the University of Minnesota saying they wanted additional information and material from me and they thanked me for applying. I said, I didn't do it. He smiled and he said, I sent your letter in, O'Neill. So the choir director, Dr. Harris, sent my letter of inquiry in that he saw the job advertisement. And we laughed at it. I said, man, are you kidding? He said, you don't have anything to lose. He said, hey, man, just take the free trip. Send them some more stuff. I sent them some more stuff up there, a couple of arrangements and some drill charts and stuff like that. And a couple of weeks later, I get a call saying, you wanted the finalists for the job. And I'm like, wait a minute. This can't be serious. This has got to be a joke. And I did some research. I called Paul and Adams, my friend and my mentor, high school band director, college band directors, and talked to them about it. And all of them said, well, man, you don't have anything to lose. You're going, to another part of the country. I said, well, they only want to use me as a ploy to say that they had a finalist for the position. And so they convinced me to take the job. And at the period of time, my wife was pregnant with my youngest son, Chris, and ready to go to the hospital. And I was using that as an excuse not to go because I really didn't want to go. I was actually frightened, to tell you the truth, because I didn't know if I could, go and make a good showing and represent myself, because that's a whole nother world from what I came from. Like I told you, I didn't have the experience at Southern. I had to conduct this, the symphonic band when I went there and all of that. So I didn't have the confidence to go and do it. And I called Paul on the phone and we started talking. He was band director at Howard University at the time, which was about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And he said, look, man, hold up before you make that decision. I said, I'm on my way down there. An hour and a half, Paul was at my house. And so we sat down and we talked about it. And my wife was back in the room, saying, I think this baby getting ready to do something. And I said, well, I can't leave you, And that was another excuse for me not to go, because I was afraid to go. I didn't know. And I didn't want it to be that ploy that they were going to be able to say to affirmative action that, hey, we had, a minority in the finalists for the position. And I kind of felt that's what it was. So anyway, they convinced me to get on the plane. And so I shouted out the house and last minute made it to Richmond, Virginia, got on the plane and flew up to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and it was like January, man. And it was like minus 10 below zero. And as a matter of fact, while I was en route to the University of Minnesota for the job, my son Chris was born when I was flying up there to Minnesota. So when I got to Minnesota, my son, the guy who picked me up, my son had met me. My son was born. And so anyway, we got through all of that and he told me about it. And en route to the hotel, he said to me, O'Neill, give me the arrangements that you were supposed to bring along so we can play them at the event tomorrow, and gave me a brand new score that I had to conduct with the symphonic band and all that, and Bombshell. rushing out the house and made last minute. I didn't have my arrangements there. I had left them at home, and it wasn't no internet, and it actually wasn't no fax machines that I could actually. It wasn't any fax machines that I could have it faxed to me. So what do? I get to the hotel about 9 o'clock that night, and I knew that the guy who picked me up, Dr. Frank Benfishudu. Hold on a minute, my wife don't get it. I can't take the call, and sorry about that.
You're okay.
I'll shut that thing down. So I asked him if he had any manuscript paper. He said, "What are you gonna do?" I said, "Man, I forgot the charts." And he said, "Yeah, I got some school paper in the trunk of my car." And I said, "Can I get some, borrow some?" I said, "I got to come up with something for my interview on tomorrow." And he said, "What are you gonna do?" I said, "I've got to come up with something." So checked in a hotel about 9 o'clock that night, and I sat down at the desk. And I got up the next morning from the desk about 7 o'clock. He picked me up about 8 o'clock that morning to start my interview. And when I got in the car, I passed him a score. I said, "You have anybody that can copy this?" And he looked at me and he said, "What is this? I thought you had left the music." I said, "I did." He said, "Where did you get this from?" I said, "From my head. I had to come up with a couple of arrangements." And so I sat up all night and I did a couple of short things, quick things, on the spot. No piano, nothing. But I had to just bring it from all of the knowledge and experiences that I had had. And the next day, went over for the interview and stood in front of the band, put the arrangements on the stand, and conducted the symphonic band. And the students in the band gave me a standing ovation. They had already had the other two candidates there. And none of them had gotten a standing ovation. I had, a table over here with affirmative action. I was over there, and then the search committee table, and then a group of students. That was a lot of pressure for me, But once I got up there and started grooving, and their minds were blown because I was able to produce overnight. And then finally, we ended the interview, and the interview process. I get back home, see my new baby, bonding with my new baby, and told them about my experience and stuff like that. And I said, "Hey, they're not going to give me the job anyway." I had this all-white band with 300 people in the band, not a black person in the band. I said, "They're not going to have me for that job." I didn't see 3 black people the whole time I was there. And, that was a whole new culture for me. And so a couple of days later, I got a telephone call from the guy, and he said, "O'Neal, I called to tell you that you were the #1 candidate for the job at the University of Minnesota." And I went, "What? Are you that? And the university going to offer you the job?" And I said, "You got to be kidding." He said, "No." He said, you came in #1. And #2 was one of our graduates who they had already been priming for that job. But the students selected me, and that blew my mind completely. I think I'm gonna stay at Virginia State. He said, "Well, this is a very prestigious job. You'll be the first African American to be conductor of a PWI and the Big Ten and the Big East. Big Ten actually at the time, University of Minnesota." I said, let me think about it for a couple of days. So I got off the phone with the guy and talked to my wife about it and talked to Paul about it and said, "I really don't want to do it. I'm going to stay here at Virginia State College, and finish this program that I got going on pretty good." And next couple of days, he called me back and he said, "O'Neal, what's your decision?" And I said, "Well, I decided to stay at Virginia State College and, complete the job that I have started here." And he said, "Well, I was kind of concerned about that because this is a whole different culture for you. And you're going to have us concerned that you're from the South and you're going to have a 300-piece, 250, 300-piece band. It's going to be all white kids." I kind of figured that was going to be a challenge for you. And when he made that statement to me, man, my blood ran warm in my body, and it was, it was a racial overtones. All over the place. And I was just sitting there. And I had already told my wife, and Paul that I wasn't going to take the job. And when he started talking that way, I said to him, I said, Dr. Ben, when a B flat concert is played, it does not come out white, green, black, or yellow. It's a B flat concert. And I said, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm going to take the job. And my wife was sitting there with my new baby, like 2 days old, and almost dropped the baby because I had told her that I wasn't going to take the job. And she said, oh my God, we going up to Minnesota in that cold weather, kind of thing. And man, I put my foot in my mouth and I said, I have to go. I got to go do this. I've got to go do this for me, and I got to do it for our race. And old bit. I've got to make this happen. And so that's how I ended up flipping and going to the University of Minnesota. And then once I got to University of Minnesota, the exposure for me, that's when I developed. And when I say about my alma mater, Southern University, and I thank them today, and God bless. And we need our HBCU schools, because not for Southern University and what I learned in the theory and counterpoint classes that I took at Southern University, I wouldn't have been able to sit down to that desk and do that arrangement that I had to get done overnight. I do it. I understand. They gave me the basic fundamentals and theory and harmony and counterpoint. All of the things that I needed to know, they were there. They just had not been developed because I hadn't had a chance to develop them. But, I was out in the ocean. I was out in the sea, so I had to figure out how to paddle. If somebody dropped you in the ocean, you're going to try to swim. And you got to find a way to pedal and say, and the embarrassment that was there. And so I think my alma mater and Southern University make me think about now all of the HBCU schools we have in place now. They are very needed. We need to have those for people like myself who got a late start in music, and still too many of our HBCU band programs and music education programs are not equipping our students with all of the knowledge and the exposing them to the things that they need to be able to expose them to develop them to be able to go out and do what? Compete in the global job market. You've got to be able to go out there and do it. I mean, it's only so many Southern universities and FAMUs. It's only so many of them. So we've got to prepare our students. I'm kind of going off in a different direction now. But, that experience at Minnesota made me realize that how important Southern University was, and how important Southern University is. Now, today, the present state of our band programs today, and I'm going in kind of in a different direction here, is that they have all of the equipment that they need to be able to excel. People at Prairie View A&M University, Southern University, now I know Norfolk State University and FAMU, and a few more HBCU schools sprinkled here and there have the equipment. They have E-flat counterbass clarinets and B-flat counterbass clarinets and alto clarinets and all of those things. They are well equipped. Several of the schools, not enough of them, but we are moving in that direction. Now, the biggest challenge that I see presently, I'm going in another direction now with our programs, and I don't know if you want me to go here or not. The challenges that I see now is that, our administrators, most of our administrators, and I was blessed at Norfolk State with Dr. Myers and a couple of more people. She just happened to be play the violin, so she understood music from bottom to top. So, as a matter of fact, she called me sometimes after the game and said, "Neil, what's going on? With that mid range in your band, them horns, not locking in. I'm saying my president's telling me my band is out of tune." So I was lucky to have that. But too many of the presidents, all they want to see is the tubas on the fields and the drums, and we kind of shaking our butts, and they do everything they want to do for what the marching band. But when it comes to the total instrumental music program for our music education majors, we have to have that total instrumental music program so we can prepare our graduates to go out and compete in the global job market. And that's what I have been doing since I retired. And fortunate enough to be educational consultant and clinician for the Conselma company. And I get a chance to go out and they pay me to go out and do professional development workshops, in high schools, and I even done a couple of middle schools, which is a whole nother world for me. But at the high school, at colleges and universities across the country, and I'm trying to get the word out and trying to get in the ears of some of the young directors, and that's what I'm spending my life doing, now. Since spending 13 months writing that book, trying to get that book out and get beat up by that, and that was quite challenging. In between, I feel like that's my role, and that's what God wanted me to do now. So just getting off the phone today with a young man that's looking at a job at a college and university, trying to advise him on the kind of questions that he needs to ask going into a job, and all the way from what does the administration and alumni want, what kind of band program they want, do they have a music education program, all of that, how much is your budget is going to be coming in, what size year, how many years your contract is going to be when you sign it. Is it going to be a 3-year or 5-year contract, or you going to go in there and do a 1-year contract and they want you to come up with 150 or 200 piece band? You don't have the budget to do it. How far can you get if you don't have a music education program or some program in place in terms of trying to develop a total instrumental music program if you don't have music education? It's just a lot of challenges out there. And and so I'm spending my time now. Just give me a call, man. I'm on a plane or in my car, whatever, and I come and sit down with you and observe you and talk to you, and not tell you what to do, but share in my experiences, that I've had on all levels of music education, instrumental music education, from Big Ten, Big East, University of Pittsburgh. Those were total learning experiences for me. That's when I learned what a total and comprehensive program was all about. When I was up there, I was playing Ohio State, Northwestern, and those schools up there. I took some butt kickings, and I had to learn, their game. I had to learn the difference between writing an arrangement for Virginia State College and writing an arrangement for the University of Minnesota. Total different concept, and in terms of how to approach it. I had to learn how to do that. Then I had to learn what a comprehensive instrumental music program was all about. Where did I learn it? I learned at OJT, on job training out there in experiences, because I was now out there working with and rubbing shoulders with guys. Uh, Most majority of them are Caucasians or white guys, and I earned their respect. Due professionalism and productivity. They respected the Minnesota band when we were going to the University of Michigan and hit that stadium, and you got 110 people in the stands out there looking at you, and the Michigan band on the other side. I tell you what, you get a funny feeling in your stomach. And the first time that I heard, for the first time I heard a Big Ten band was Michigan State, and they must have had, I would say, probably 80 trumpets. They must have had, 64 trombones, 32 baritone horns, and 250-piece band with all of that power, and everybody could play. I learned a lesson, that I said, okay, I got to change my whole game here. And, and I had to learn, that I couldn't just do step twos. I had to start doing other things and going in different directions. And that is probably one of my biggest concerns now. Uh, our bands, you know, are looked at as what we do. The majority of us do, has become a culture for our band programs. We all sound just about alike. There are about maybe 4 or 5 bands that if you put your back to it, and that's something that I strived at Norfolk State. Paul Adams, my best friend, and William Pathea and Tim Zachary and all that. Look, we needed to have a band that when you hear Norfolk State band play and you turn your back and you hear some other bands play, I want people to be able to recognize Norfolk State band sound. Be able to recognize that now. And some people, probably will get angry with me, but I really don't care. I can say what I want to say. I'm old enough to say what I want to say, and all of our bands are beginning to sound just alike. There's not much difference in the sound, and I'm going back to what? To the days when I was in the band, at Southern University. Southern University had their unique sound. That was different. Tennessee State had a sound, that was totally different. FAM has always had their sound and identity together, and you can't knock them. And they stayed with that philosophy of what a band sound. You can hear when you hear the FAM band play, you know it's FAM. Just from the arrangements and the whole bit. You hear Norfolk State. During our era, and William Bethea and Stephanie is, carrying on the tradition of the band. They're doing a great job. Did outstanding. Bravo for them, out on the West Coast. They did great out, in Pasadena. But the majority of our bands sound the same way. The style of writing is, the same way. So that's become a culture for us. And I think that we are, oh man, I'm going crazy here, Julian. I'm going off somewhere else, in that. But, I get caught up in it. So I'm just going to shut up and let you guys ask some questions because I got 50 plus years that I can talk about, which most of it would probably bore you. But so I'm just going to shut up and listen to the young lady. Any questions?
So the first thing I'm going to say is I'm not bored. I can tell you that right now. I'm nowhere near bored. I am enjoying everything about it. As a matter of fact, a lot of the stuff that he said, everybody who's watching right now, a lot of the stuff that he said, you got to go pick up the book of Maestro and Trailblazer from Slaughter, memoir by O'Neal Dr. Sanford. I'm telling you, if from what you heard just now, if that was intriguing enough, you gotta get the book. So please make sure you can grab it on Amazon. Go ahead and pick it up. Pick it up as fast as you can. But the next thing that I actually wanted to say, and I know I want to get to Quan because I know he has a question. But the next thing that I wanted to say, just from listening to everything that you said, one of the things that and you said a lot of things that are absolutely true. It makes me feel like I'm almost certain that you've watched the show on multiple occasions because of some of the things that you just got finished saying. But one of the things that you said early on in talking about your career when you were going from Virginia State and trying to make that decision was the fact that wasn't a space that you were used to operating in, and you wanted to be and you felt more comfortable being in the space that you were at Virginia State. And I think that's a big thing for us as a people. I think as music educators, right? Like, I know that when I had the opportunity to go to the DCI world, it was uncomfortable for me because it was something that I had never done before. But I knew I went in as a tech, but I knew trumpet, and I knew trumpet very well. And when I got into that space and operated in that space, I never got anybody who told me I ever did a bad job. As a matter of fact, everybody always told me I was doing great. So much so that the next following year, I ended up being a captain head at a program. But we have got to become comfortable with operating in different spaces. We learn from that. I learned so much just from being in that space for a summer. And I grew from that. And because of that, I was able to operate in different spaces. We've got to get out of these comfort zones, and kind of going back to what you said towards the end, getting us out of those comfort zones will also give us new and fresh ideas to bring back to our university programs and music programs, instead of having everything be and look exactly the same. Most of the problem, or most of the issues that we have, is the fact that we don't have any other outside tutelage except for the things that we have only regurgitated for years and years and years. And when we start to go out and we get those other things, and we acquire that knowledge from other places, it allows our book to grow bigger, so that we can give and pass that knowledge on to the next generation. So I think that what you said is absolutely amazing.
Because the word is scared. That's the simple word. I was scared to hell that I was going to fail and that I could not do it. And I was afraid that they were going to do what? They were going to use, okay, we're going to give this guy this job because we know that he's not going to survive, in this particular culture. And so, I got said, okay, we're going to let him have the job, kind of thing. But, the key for me was the students. When I went there, they were playing, the musicianship level was way up here. Some of the best musicians I ever stood in front of were at the University of Minnesota. And they were used to playing polkas and show tunes and all like that. I went in there with Earth, Wind and Fire and Michael Jackson and Tower of Power and Chicago, all of those kinds of tunes that they had not been exposed to. After about 2 years, they didn't even want to play a polka. They were bringing me in tunes by Michael Jackson, Barry White. Say, hey, what do you think about this? Doc, what do you think this will, sound like with the band? Can you make that happen? So, I was able to get the respect of everybody. And I went in also as a tenured position, and was able to get tenure at the end of my second year. And that's something else I tell the guys about when they're going out to get jobs. I went in tenure track, and the university was so structured and organized until they assigned a senior professor to me to help me get through that. That was a process that they had in place to get through it. You had 3 years to get tenure. At the end of my second year, I was tenured. So come I had the job locked in. So when I talk to these guys out in the field, you going in this job, man, are you gonna get a tenured contract? Are you gonna be tenure tracked on? And you got to know that stuff. Because what happens? Boom. If you can't give them that, 128 piece band, with 16 tubas and the baritones, and the trumpets and all that brass and drum for marching band, they'll fire you in a minute. So a lot of guys get caught up into, to those jobs. And then, because high school band directors, I'm doing a session at CSI, Conselm Institute, what is the hell is it? In June, and it's about transitioning to the college level, because a lot of guys want to leave high school and middle school and move up to the university and college level. My first word is hey, the grass is not as green on the other side of the fence as it appeared when you're standing on the opposite side. And you're going up to the collegiate level. There are a lot of things that you have to take in, in consideration. And I share all of these things with the guys because I've experienced it. I've seen it, happen. It's really tough to be a director in HBCU schools. I mean, there are some guys. I was blessed at Norfolk State. Tim Zachary is blessed over at Prairie View. A&M. He's getting everything and more. The fam has been set for years. My alma mater now is in great shape, in terms of where they are, in terms of the total instrumental music program. They have a symphonic concert band, and I think they've got some chamber ensembles, brass choirs, and all that. They're giving those kids total experience, and the kids are playing year round. both semesters. They're not just in marching band, and they're not just going to, I think they do too many parades, Mardi Gras parades, but I know how, they got to make money. You're in Louisiana, and people in Louisiana, they going to party. Mardi Gras season, the Southern University bands got to, show up for a couple of Mardi Gras parades at least, in Baton Rouge and New Orleans and some small communities, but for the most part, like I said, our band programs are there. But that thing of fear, going back to your point, the bottom line for me, I was scared I was going to fail, But I had that foundation that I had got from Southern music skills, basic fundamentals that helped me to survive.
All right. Well, let's start pulling in questions. I know you want to get some questions. I know I have a few, but I do want to allow the rest of the panel to get theirs in, as well as everybody who's out there watching. So, Quan, you got it first, man. Go ahead and get your questions in, bro.
Well, first I want to say, Dr. Sanford, like, great book. I've been kind of my book came in last night, so I've been reading it every free moment that I have. I'm in page 75 right now. I'm in the chapter of it's damn cold. When you transition to the Minnesota and have that whole conversation with Dr. Ben, as you stated, you kind of honestly you're not far off, because some of the things you've answered, but I really want you to dive in deep on this question. The first question that I have for you tonight is, what is the current state of bands in the HBCU world? That's sound wise, creativity, funding, and hiring younger band directors, in your opinion? You kind of answered it, but I kind of want to dive deeper in that aspect.
The current state of the HBCU band programs, I did kind of touch on that a little bit. As I said earlier, our band programs have the best equipment that I've ever experienced in my 50 years, with that. I mean, they have the equipment. Uh, Many of them don't have the facilities and all of the things that are necessary to take care of that equipment properly, which is something that I experienced, up there, having a person that would be hired just to take care of their instruments and clean their instruments and fix their instruments, and a person in house that's on staff. I mean, that's a perfect situation, because Mississippi Valley's had that when I accepted the job in 1966 when I first went to Valley. Valley already had that. Mississippi Valley was one of a band program that was completely different. But going back to your question, uh, the majority, let's see, there are a small percentage of HBCU bands who have a total comprehensive program, instrumental music program. That's my number one, concern. They all have, the majority of them have marching bands, and as I said earlier, the culture for us is, blastissimo. That's a term that I that I have guys to think, what the world, blastissimo? It's all about playing loud, and guys don't understand that. Playing in tune and articulation is going to get you all the power you need. If you can play in tune and you got the arrangement, and you got if you taught your students, I mean, you can get the power. But they have gone beyond, what fortissimo is, and every band's gonna have, a different concept. So I think that, that side of, but as far as having a total and comprehensive instrumental music program, we're coming up short. And we get to, we got the uniforms when we go to these administrators, like I was talking with the gentleman today, is you got to go in and explain to the administration that what a total and comprehensive music program is all about, and what it's going to take for, and this is what you expect as a director coming in. Yeah, I'm gonna give you your marching band. Now, just don't can't get this out of line. The marching band is the bread and butter of our what band programs, and that is in our HBCU schools. They are the bread and butter. I mean, it is. The marching band is it. It's key. You gotta have that marching band for our HBCU. Not so much at the University of Michigan because they, you got a budget. Ohio State just got people that just deal with marching band. Then they got a wind ensemble director, and a person just deal with that guy. They have their own budget. Then they have the jazz ensemble. We have completely lost jazz in our HBCU programs. Jazz bands in our HBCU programs. Very limited. You may be able to find 5 in all of our programs. So we're not giving what our students here. And going back to your question, we're not developing our students to be able to go out there in the global job market and get that job at the University of Michigan and Florida State and all of that if you don't have, that total program to give those kids the experience. That's my concern. So that's where we are. Equipment wise, we're doing better. Some facilities are not adequate. Maybe, a third of them may have decent facilities. Storage for uniforms. I mean, those are not simple things. Those are major things. That's going to be the difference between what, you know, the life of your instruments and your equipment. How long is that's gonna last? Now, I remember at a point just before I left Norfolk State, and I just going back to Norfolk State, is that we had 2 sets of instruments. We had a set of instruments that we practiced on. My number one goal when Tim Zachary came there, and when Paul Adams came in, and William Pathea came in, and Stephanie Sanders, is that I did not want a student to graduate from that program without having to put a trumpet player that had not put their hands on a piccolo trumpet. We bought piccolo trumpets. We bought, C trumpets, and of course the marching band stuff, was, that outside trombone. We had soprano trombones, alto, all the way the whole trombone line because I wanted every student in that program to be able to experience that. We had the clarinets all the way down to the what? B flat counterbass clarinet, which I had not ever experienced. In the saxophone, we even have a bass sax for the saxophone section. Because what of the experiences that I had up in the PWI schools and experiences that I didn't get when I was at Southern because our university was too poor to have that, to give me that kind of experience. So did that kind of summarize that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I just one quick question. My last question, well, not last question, but I do have this question. Did you ever question yourself as a director? And if so, how did you overcome your own thoughts?
Time. Many times. What are you thinking about? You question yourself when you sit down and write a drill to tune and then spend 30 hours on writing a drill on arrangements and go to sleep and wake up the next day and throw it in the trash can. That's second guessing. I did that, many times because I wanted it to be better, and you pull away from it. Sometimes when you had time to do it, probably, I hate to think about it, you guys have it easy now. I look at, Kevin Jones at, LSU, those guys they got computers. They can do what? Hit a couple of buttons and they can totally change a drill. When I was at the University of Minnesota and University of Pickles with those big pads, guess what? I had to put a dot down for every 250 people on that field. And trust me, there are times when I had to throw a drill chart away that may have been 80 pages of nothing but 250 dots or 280, dots on the field and throw the whole drill away and go back and start all over again because I didn't have no way to duplicate. So I tell Kevin and the guys, now y'all got it easy, man. Y'all can hit a button. But second guess yourself? Yes, you can. Say decisions you make, about leadership, for an example, in the band, students that talented students that are there, you don't see it because you can see a kid standing back, and that's you just never know. Made mistakes, on selecting drum majors. So you do are you gonna make mistakes. If you're a human being, you're gonna make mistakes, and you rectify them. You deal with it, and never be afraid to say, "I'm sorry. I got to do this." I remember doing a couple of arrangements on a couple of occasions, and I had the band to play through it, and I tell the kids, "Hey, right now, ball that up and put it in the trash can. Take the parts and put them in the trash can. Tear the score up in front of the band, and go back. Get back to the desk and come back. I'm gonna come back another way with that. Wrong key." That key is not, gonna work. I couldn't sit at the computer now and boom, boom, and change it, say, okay, I'm gonna make this up a minor third. I'm taking up a whole step because it's gonna help the woodwinds because it's got the woodwinds in the wrong key, And so yeah, you second guess yourself and accept it that you're human. You're gonna make mistakes and never be the best thing you can do if you make a mistake and you standing in front of the students, let the students know that you're human too. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, I got that wrong. That's one of the best things you can do, and you earn the respect of your students when you do that. I got that wrong, guys. Throw that thing away. I don't know where I was. I was on cloud nine when I did that. No, that's not gonna work for us. Bam. Then you believe it. You will learn. The students will learn to respect you for that. Don't just go on because you're proud. I put this thing in E minor and it's in D minor, and this thing may have should have been in F, and F minor instead of D minor. You know what I'm saying? So that's what some advice I tell people all the time. Even tell my grandkids that don't be afraid to say you make a mistake. When you make a mistake, that qualifies you as a human being.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I didn't know, Quan, if you were going to say something else. Go ahead.
I guess for me, I don't mean to have a selfish moment, but I look at it like, you don't have history, in front of you often. So I'm being a little grafty. So I apologize. But I guess my last question is: did you ever feel like you weren't prepared? And this is something personally that at times me and Julie have had conversations I deal with. I mean, I was trying to be as studious as possible, but do you ever get up to a point or ever walk into a situation where you felt like you weren't prepared?
All the time, many times, many times. But that's in one of them situations where like what I was telling you about. If you're in the ocean and you want to live, guess what? You got to swim. You got to find a way to swim. You got to find a way to get it done. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I walked in many situations where I felt like I wasn't prepared. And a lot of times it wasn't because I was planning on that I didn't plan. I just didn't have the knowledge, to get it done. Or sometimes you just make a bad mistake or you procrastinate. That's one thing that I learned that I could not do it because I'm not going to waste the student time. There's many times that Julian probably remember this. We'd go on the field and we'd start working on a drill or something. And I said, okay, let's take it inside and do some music because I got to straighten out some things here with this drill. We'll come back to drill tomorrow. And I wasn't prepared. It wasn't that I wasn't trying to be. It may have been something that caused me, to think a different way. But so don't be. That's going to happen with you. There are going to be situations when you are not going to be prepared as you want to be. So don't be afraid of it. Just just eat it. It's real. It's what it is. And if there's anybody, and one of my instructors said to me, I went to a clinic once, and the guy said, I want everybody to look to the left. And then I want everybody to look to the right and look at the person in front of you and then turn around and look behind. What was this guy talking about? He said, if you're sitting by anybody who think they got all of the answers and they know everything, I advise you to get up and move over or back a couple of seats away from them. Get it? If you're sitting by somebody that thinks they knows it all, but they know it all, or they running their mouth all the time, they know it all, they got all the answers, then you need to get away from them because you're sitting next to a fool. You don't know it all. And it ain't about being an outstanding musician. Being the best trumpet player does not make you what? the best band director, because being a band director, you got to deal with people. You got to deal with what? A lot of different personalities. So you got to find the middle of the road, to deal with it. And then you learn that. And matter of fact, most band directors who are successful who are, just average musicians, not the guy that could just pick the trumpet up and then play a Z on the trumpet the first time he put it to his lips. It's the guy that's gonna have more of a repertoire as a person who kind of struggle to be able to get up to that Z, because they had to find their way. They had to try different things and different techniques, and then go to the guy on the left and the front or the back and say, "What do you think about this? What you think about that?" And talking about that, one example I had when I was in graduate school at Vandercook. And like I said, I got started late on the trombone. I could always make a pretty sound on the horn. I had a beautiful tone and sweet tone, and could get around on the horn, pretty good technique, but I could never be consistent with getting a note started, to attack that note, pow, nail it. I'd fluff it up, 50% of the time. And so I was studying with Adam Case, who's the principal trombonist for Detroit Symphony, and I went to take a lesson with him. He's just said, I just can't figure out what's going on with your attack. Why can't you nail your notes? And said, man, once you get the note started, you just got a beautiful sound. And we just kept talking, and then all at once he said, say that again. I say what? You say the, and say that. And I would say D, and I say that. Now, I'm right dead out of the South, right? Now, we talk with our tongues in the flat of our mouth. The people don't know who that came from. Who that? Anybody know where that came from? Because people, that's what they say. They don't say that. They say that. Who is that? All right, talking the wrong place. So this guy, white guy, we're talking, and he heard me articulating, and he said, O'Neill, he say the, and I say D, and he said say T, and all of those T sounds, my tongue was in the wrong place, and he just corrected me. Now put your tongue up behind your top teeth, and he say the. And every time I did it and got on that horn and said T, man, I was nailing it, man. The guy went nuts. He went down the hallway and found his other, so a couple more his professors, and said, now I got it. Placement of the tongue, especially for, blacks who come out of the South, we talk that way. So that was just a learning moment, for me. That was a great moment for me. I had been struggling trying to figure out how to, my teachers had been struggling trying to get me to learn how to attack and be consistent with attacking notes. That's just an example of, of how you grow through experiences. And from that point on, I could solve many problems, with articulations in my bands, because I had to understand, where they are. And it's a different kid from New Orleans and a kid that grows up in New York. It's a whole different placement of the tongue when they talk. Sounds simple thing like that. If you want to clean your band up, you got to figure out how to get that done. Yeah, just a simple thing.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure I stay on I stay on code. So welcome everybody to Talk That Talk. We have the unfiltered, unscripted, uncomfortable conversations about band, HBCU, band culture, music education, and more. Man, y'all go ahead and smash that like daddy right now. Smash it for the show. Smash it for Dr. Sanford. Everything, all the information he's giving us now, man. This is truly a gem right here. Also, please make sure you subscribe to the Passengers Network and turn on notifications. This episode will be up on all your podcast net. I didn't record. You supposed to remind me. Please make sure that you subscribe to the Passengers Network and turn on notifications. This episode will be up on all your podcast networks. Just type in Talk That Talk, except for on Apple Podcasts, where you can type in Real Talk That Talk. It will be up. It just will take a little longer for me to do the editing, but it will be up a lot faster. But I did not hit the record button. I am so sorry about that. But don't worry. Don't worry. We're going to be good. It'll be up on all your podcast networks. It'll still be up. But one of the things that I want to say, and we do have a question.
Who's Maya? What do you do, Maya? You
I
have
am. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
I said, what do you do?
Currently?
Yeah. Are you a director?
Oh, no, sir. No, sir. Currently, I am not doing anything music related. I work in corporate America. But you're like, well, what are you doing here? But no, I marched, most formally, I marched in Prairie View A&M University's band under Dr. Zachary.
Yeah, well, hey, that's my boy there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's wonderful to meet you.
Thank you. All right, carry on, Julia.
All right. So, but yeah, so one of the things that I do want to say, and then we do have a guest that wants to come in and ask a question. One of the things that I do want to say is it's, first of all, it's amazing to basically hear some of these things that you're saying, because they resonate so much with me personally as an educator, as a music educator. Just going back so far as just being able to admit when you are wrong on the podium. I never have, well, I ain't gonna say never. When I started out, I felt like I had to be this boastful person that was just always correct. But I realized I wasn't getting me as far as I needed it to be. So, you know, I realized that at some point I had to show my students that I was human. And sometimes I did make mistakes. Sometimes they did have to say, hey, Mr. Luke, this doesn't look right. And I say, oh, my bad. And I from there, I did build better connections. So that's one of the things that you said that I felt that resonated with me. And then also just the whole "the" thing. And within my last, I want to say 5 or 6 years of teaching, I started incorporating that in some of my articulation exercises for a lot of my students, because I realized that there was a point where they were missing that articulation. And they were like, Mr. Luke, I can't connect the tonguing aspect to, you know, me moving air and getting a sound. And I say, well, just say "the." And it finally locked in for them. And some of those kids were some of my better players. And so, you know, it's really interesting to hear some of these stories, because they really, really do resonate with me. Yes, Brother Moore, I do need a checklist at some point. All right, let's go ahead and bring in our first guest, man, who wants to be able to ask a question. So he's no stranger to the show. He is definitely family right here on the Passionate Network. So let's go ahead and bring in Justin. What's going on there, brother?
You good? Y'all can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. I know you got a lot. So you got one, only one? Oh, okay.
I have a couple, but he answered one that was so like, he gave me perspective, but I got more to add to it. So Dr. Sanford, starting with the Vandercook, you studying jazz composition. I guess my question to add to everything that you said, you played jazz music in New Orleans, just like you said, the double music, right? How did your jazz background in New Orleans help you thrive in Vandercook studying jazz composition?
Well, I didn't study jazz composition, you know, at Vandercook. Vandercook is basically a career. If you want to be a band director, back in the day, they used to say go to Vandercook, so you can learn how to be. I wasn't so much of a jazz player. I was a blues player. I could play blues, but you heard around it. I didn't grow up in New Orleans. I was in New Orleans every summer since I was 5 years old or 6, and my mom used to take all of us to New Orleans every summer until, as they say, I got managed and my aunt couldn't manage me anymore. So I got in a little bit of trouble. So they stopped sending me down there with my sisters, But I learned, my big experience with jazz and being able to write for big band was I became a very good friend of Thad Jones. Now, I understood harmony, on the piano, I can sit down. I understand, what the F7 chord is, with the augmented 9, and I can do that. But that all comes from what? The background. So if you understand harmony, you basically, if you have the technique, you can kind of basically learn how to play what? Jazz. And the key to playing jazz and dealing with jazz is understanding jazz harmonies. If you understand the jazz harmonies and you learn them, it's just a matter of you having the creativity to be able to use, the harmonies to, to improvise, and if you can sing a scat and what have you, and you can make that happen in your horn, that's what it's all about. But my experience came with, Thad Jones. When I was at Minnesota, that was, going into my 8th year there. I was there 9 years. That was a position that was opening up at the university. They were going to hire a jazz band director of jazz studies, and I was looking for something else to venture off in. I had kind of conquered the marching band and doing really well with the symphonic band. I was, good with that, but I was looking for something else to do different. And so I applied for a sabbatical leave to go to Copenhagen, to the Conservatory of Music in Copenhagen, and study for a semester with Thad Jones. You know the name? Thad Jones, monster, man. He made me feel I was so ignorant when I sat with him next to the piano, and we just kind of hooked up. And just kind of liked these. I actually brought him up to the University of Minnesota to play with my jazz ensemble, and he, we just kind of hooked up and became friends. And then so he invited me down, and university granted me the leave to go down there for a semester and study with him, because I wanted to prepare to come back to be able to apply for the job at the university, the jazz study job. Director of jazz study at the University of Minnesota, but I learned a whole lot. And then I found out a lot, if you know Thad, with his complex harmonies and voicings and what have you. I found out that what I was able to bring to him was that and I'm going back to Southern University again now, he didn't really understand what the difference between a C augmented 9 7 chord with the augmented 9. And we'd write it down, he would write down, C, E, G, B flat, and then he would, and then E flat on the top. When it was actually not E flat, the augmented 9 is going to be what? D sharp, and harmonic is the same as E flat. So he used to get into a lot of arguments with his guitar players and piano players with the way he wrote the chords down, because he didn't understand the difference between nobody, because he's self-taught.
Right.
He never went to college. He never studied, so everything he did was just natural for him. So he would write C, C 7 with E flat on the top. And I'm like, wait a minute. And the guitar player would always say, man, that ain't no E flat. That's a D sharp. That's the augmented 9 kind of thing, And so I spent a lot of time with that, helping him understand how to do what, how to write the correct name of the harmonies down, or the chords down. So I taught him that. Meanwhile, when I sat with him on the piano and we started writing sax solos, man, I felt like, I was embarrassed. I didn't even know how to approach it, but I wish I could have stayed longer with him. But going back to that was probably the extent of me really getting into writing. And when I came out of that deal, I actually ended up writing a couple of tunes for jazz ensemble. And so you learn, it's OJT. Like I said, I go back to this. You get out there. If I had taken that job at the university, if I had been able to get that job as coordinator of jazz studies at the University of Pittsburgh, I would be out there in the ocean. So I'm going to do what? I'm going to swim. I'm going to hook up with Thad Jones. I'm going to get Duke Ellington scores, and I'm going to study them. Any of the old cats left from the old school up there, that I can find down in New Orleans or St. Louis. I'm hooking up with those guys and understanding the whole bit. If I was making my living playing as a jazz musician, you do what? You lock up in the shed. But I never really had a time, because when I came out of at the end of my sophomore year, I had a son, I had a child, my sophomore year in college, man. And that was about me trying to make some ducats, some dollars. I had to put grits and grocery in the pantry, And so, I got out there, and a quick way for me to put myself through school and make money was playing with the blues band. So I didn't have time to, to really get into it. And my head wasn't there. I wasn't even thinking about that, doing that, era. And I was saying, man, I wish I'd spend more time in it, but life didn't go that way.
A quick second, Midwest Man Klein, when you were first telling us about the book, and you pointed at the Hall of
Hey,
Fame.
hold on right quick. I can barely hear you. I don't know what happened with your audio, but it just completely changed. Try talking again, Justin.
You get me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
We talked for a quick second at Midwest, me, you, and Quan, when you first were telling us about the book and you pointed to the Wall of Fame. I wanted to say, could you give us a quick little tip about how writing our own? I know we had a little talk about it. I think it's important for the people that it comes from you yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because you hit the ball in the park in like 5 minutes. So highlighting our own, tell the people, just to that.
Well, basically what I was related to when I walked through that entrance going into the display area over there, and they had a wall of fame up there, and they had maybe three African Americans on that wall. And I didn't and still don't understand, why we don't have more up there who made contributions to music education. The number one problem is we as a people, this is heavy stuff here. The people who are managing to get in those positions in high places, they don't reach down and get the people that are down here. They see it as what? I'm up here, I've made it, and then they don't reach back and say, oh man, come on, I'm gonna grab you up out the barrel. We'll leave each other down in the barrel. So my thing, what I was basically saying to the organization is this: we need to establish our own Hall of Fame of band directors. We can establish that with our HBCU organization. People don't have a clue as some of the great guys, who are our founding fathers of our band programs. They need to be recognized. And Midwest Band Clinic can't recognize, and I might say that they don't know about them, first of all. They don't care to. And the sad thing about it is many of the guys who making it, instead of them, the ones who are up there need to say, hey, look, we had a great guy like Greer at Tennessee State. We had, Ed Graves at Tennessee State. We had, such and such a person. Russell Boone was a giant, of a band director. And I mean, the list goes on and on. Thomas Lowell, Alabama A&M, and Walter Carson he was at North Carolina, A&T. And I mean, it's just, who knows who Charlie Brown is. Charlie Brown is at Shaw University. He was not there anymore, but for years and years, and he struggled with that program. But always what? He always put together a good band, and those kids had good musical experiences there. So what I was saying at the Midwest Band is we need to put our own Hall of Fame of band directors together, and not walk in there and I'm looking at the wall and I see 3 or 4 of us on there. And a couple of people on there, are there because they what? I'm not going to kiss ass to be there. I want you to put me up there because what? Or what I've accomplished. And, the people lives like Julian and Tim Zachary and people lives that I have, influence in some way. Some not all good, but, influence in some way. So that's what that was all about. The thing is that we've got to start lifting each other up. The bottom line, we've got to lift each other up. And, you see a brother down, don't walk on it. Reach down and pick him up. You see if something crazy happens, with band programs, whether it be a hazing situation where if somebody get fired, guess what? And I hear about it, guess what? I get on the phone and I call him. or some crazy stuff that goes down in a program, because we're all human beings. We all make bad choices and bad mistakes. So we need to help each other. And any of these guys, I don't care what they got in trouble with, hazing, got in trouble with, sexual allegations and stuff that go down. I mean, just anything, and I hear about it, say, I want to get it straight. Even if I don't even know them, I pick up the phone and find a way to call them and say, hey, man, I heard about what they have. Just want to give you some support, in a kind of way. And people tell you that's who I am. That's the way I operate.
I didn't mean to swing the convo, but he told us that in Midwest. I said I gotta let us speak on that. But that's my time, y'all. Be all there. Got a lot of long list of callers, but thank you, Doc, for answering that, Doc.
All right, bro.
We need to recognize all these guys. Sam Griffin at at Alcorn State University. Nobody don't know. The majority of people ain't never heard of Sam. Don't know who he is, but he influenced a whole lot of people's lives. And that's what we do as band directors. We do that.
Rob, a good question on time. Where would this Hall of Fame, that's a good question. I'm going, y'all. All right, Doc.
All right, bro. I saw it. I deal with it. Man, so first of all, hold up, I gotta get Quan back in here. Well, he's here, but he had a transition. Not transition, but he transitioned to the car. Yeah, I don't want to say that. But I do want to say this. First of all, everybody who was in the chat, everybody who's watching live, I did just put the link inside of the chat. If you want to come in and ask a question, it's also pinned to the YouTube. Malik, I saw you in. I don't know why you may have left out for whatever reason, but come on back, man. We're opening up. The room is wide open. But I do want to say very quickly that what you said, Doc, is absolutely very true. We've got to continue to lift each other up. And what I've and I know that I've had this conversation on a couple of ways with a couple of different people. And what it seems to be, and I want to make sure I make this very clear. I cannot say that I know specifics, but I can tell you what it seems and or feels to be, is that in a lot of times it almost feels like it's I just said it feels like it's a penis swinging contest, to where everybody's trying to prove who's the bigger, who's the best, who's the baddest. And I really don't think that we are in totality lifting each other up and picking each other up, and especially in this new social media era. And we've talked about this on many occasions on this show. And just kind of like you said, when you hear something, you want to call and you want to find out and you want to realize what's going on, and you want to be able to get the insight and talk to these people. And now in this social media era, what happens is something goes down, and then all of a sudden it's blasted on social media. Everybody's got jokes, everybody's talking about it. And I feel like it's more of the community being against each other in a total sense than it is working together with one another. Do you see that, or am I just kind of projecting that off of what I feel like I've seen? Is that what you see, Doc, or not?
Absolutely. And the bigger and better, and I think the word is louder. It's who can play the loudest. And one thing that disturbs me, and I'm old school, is that zero quarter and that fifth quarter thing. That disturbs me, because there's no music being played in the fifth quarter. It's no music. It's no way you can have you. It's no way that you can have the chops, to play pregame and then play halftime, play through the whole thing, and then at the end of the day, you're gonna stay in the stands and play for another hour and a half. There's no music being made. So what are you doing? And then for the few fans who run around with cameras, so they can do what? They can make videos of you. If you're gonna play, then play and make the people pay. I saw two major bands on a Friday night, blowing at each other out in a baseball diamond for fans, free. They're not even paying. They didn't pay. Just free. Just out there just blowing for hours and hours at each other. And every time it was all about what? Loud and blastissimo. That bothers me. But I'm old school. So that's where they are now. Then I'm out the profession in time. If that's where we are and that's what we're doing, yes. And and that's it. And guys playing, and it doesn't make sense to me. You're gonna show up at a football game and an hour and a half before the game starts. I think maybe some situation has gotten better. With that, I've seen the people show up an hour and a half so they can get in the stadium and blow on somebody when they come in, and then after the game is over, they understands and they're blowing each other for 1 or 2 hours after the game is over to see who's gonna run out of tunes. A situation I know about where one band I was running out of tunes and sent a staff person back to the library to collect some music so he could have the most he could play some more, have some more news. That's crazy. What are we doing to our kids? Our kids that are in the program, man, are struggling. And I hear all the time. I just heard maybe at the Midwest Band Clinic where, freshman class in a band situation, more than 50% of the kids were failing classes. Because what? Band directors are running to all these Battle of the Bands all over the place. Battle of the Band in February? Are you kidding? When is the serious side of your program is going to work? When are you going to teach the kids? It's not a whole lot of teaching going on for marching band. It's not a whole lot of teaching. Music and concept, it's not a lot of teaching. I mean, play a lot of notes. And don't really play a lot of notes because, we got the whole note syndrome going on, the half note syndrome, and the dotted quarter note, followed by an 8 note, a couple 16 notes here and there, and most of the stuff that we play is going to be 1 or 2 or 3 different, chords. 8 measures, and then the tubas come in. You know what I'm saying? So I'm old school. So I'm out, I'm out of it at the right time. But the people who want to go beyond that, I love coming to Prairie View. I know I come out and I get my shot in the arm. That what I'm missing when I go there. It's just like getting shot up when I go. Every now and then, play one of my arrangements. There's some other schools I go to, and I get a chance to stand in front of the band and enjoy it, and just enjoy it. Man, I miss it now. I miss it, but I don't miss where the bands are now. I don't miss what we're doing. And I certainly don't like the culture, of people being able to say, well, that's just a black man. They ain't worried about sounding good. They're not concerned about sounding good. All they want to do is sound loud, blast. So I guess that comes along with time. You have to know when to walk away. So I walked away, at the right time for me. And now I'm just in the background, just trying to help and be available for whoever, who wants to listen. And I'm always happy, to share experiences. And I doubt, I've probably forgotten more experiences than most people will have in 30 years as a band director. Because it's been a long time.
And I will say this, there have been a lot of times what you said on this show. There have been a lot of times where we have echoed those sentiments as a panel on multiple occasions. And we'll get those people who do agree, absolutely, but there will be a majority of people because it's not in the quote unquote culture who will say, hey, we're being quote we're trying to be white, or we're trying to be different, or we're trying to go against what the culture is, instead of actually saying, hey, maybe we need to think about looking at it from a music educator's perspective. I think one of the things that I've talked about on this show, I think one of the things that Quan has brought up back when Rick was on the show, one of the things that was talked about is the fact that I think that sometimes, especially now, that we've actually forgotten about the music educator within that space, within the band program. We have completely forgot about them. We want to entertain and we want to do this, but that student has to leave that university and go compete with another person from a predominantly white institution who has received a lot more tutelage than just shaking it up or just cranking up on any given Friday or Saturday. And I think that is one of the issues that we run into. But when we say that, we're bashing the culture. And I don't, and I know I haven't felt that way, because to be quite honest, the way that I am, I've grown up in the culture, I've seen the culture, but I also believe, because I am a music educator and because I do believe in growing my mind in music education and actually doing something for the kids besides just saying, well, they're here, we got them out of school, they're done. I actually want them to be able to compete, because I know what it's like to step inside of that master's program at a predominantly white institution and have to sit next to those people and hear what they're talking about and hear their experiences. And so when I go and I sit in front of in front of kids, and when I sit in front of students, I want to treat every student in that room. I don't care if you're a nursing major or engineer major. I don't care what you are. I'm treating everyone like they're a music education major, because we can't forget about the ones that are in there. So that's just how I perceive it. And we have on the show, and a lot of people on the show.
Music is not white or black or blue or green or anything. Good music is good music, and it has to be made. It be played with concept and style and all of the things that we are taught, that makes it an art form. And I know people say, well, we don't want to sound like this, and we don't want to sound. I'm telling you, play whatever music you want to play, but at least play it with some kind of style and control and intonation, articulations. Writing in the musical instruments in the range that they were produced and made to play in. Having mellophones up on high E's and F's. You know what I'm saying? High E flat E concerts, and F and G concerts, horns up there playing. On their instruments transposed D's and E's. That horn is out of character.
First trumpet.
Yeah, well, yeah, your third trumpet's in it. We're second trumpets. You can give it to your third trumpet, but that's still pretty high. But I mean, just and kids just, I was in an experience once where kids didn't feel like the section leader say, "Man, you ain't bringing no blood." Kid actually had blood in his mouthpiece, and the kids were playing hard and were working to bleed. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying, oh my God, are you serious? Kids actually mouthpieces have blood inside, because they doing what? They yanking the horns down and this and all of that kind of stuff into that. I mean, it's good. I mean, it ain't nothing like for entertainment for HBCU bands. They come on the field and they bring that energy. And I love that part of it. They bring that in. Some of them, they're gonna bring the energy to it, and they're gonna sure you playing to your audience. You got to play the music that, you don't go to Southern University and play a polka. That's that. You play a blues. You play rhythm and blues, and you play rap. And all that, but it still has to be played with good musical quality. And that's the concern. And I hope that we can, and that's why our organization in Atlanta, man, we try to get the guys around the table. I don't know if we're doing any good or not with that, but I do know one thing: the performances of the merging of concert and symphonic bands is happening in our schools. We're getting more schools with that. We've had many schools to come and showcase, the concert side of the program. But you can't do it if you run into a Honda Battle of the Bands in January or February. You doing one of those events, you can wreck your kids. Because you start your kids at the beginning of August and you go through what a grueling football season, and they go home and they come back, and then they, on occasion, like what Bethea did at Norfolk State, he couldn't do that every year. The kids didn't have no time, to rest and relax. And hopefully, I'm sure that they, on top of them with their grades and all of that kind of stuff, and what they're really there for is to go to school and not major in band. If you're an engineering major, you play in the band, but that's not your major. The second semester, hey, going out there and let all these promoters get them to come to these events. Guess what? When they suit up the Southern University band, and put all them instruments and uniforms in their hands and what it takes to operate that program, they're looking at $4 or $5 million. And then you're gonna put those kids, take your band with that kind of money and put them on a bus and go on a bus up to Atlanta and play an event up there and let Honda make tons of money, and they give you $10,000. You understand what I'm saying? So we don't come together. We don't need Honda to do Battle of the Bands. We have the product. You understand? So we didn't need, and we tried to when they first started this Honda Battle of the Bands back in the day, my thing was, look, guys, we need to organize. Let's do our own, Battle of the Band. Let's set it up, in the 3 or 4 different, districts, upper division, middle, south, whatever, and let's do it. Let's make all of the money. No, nobody want to do it. Look, let's have judges at the Battle of the Bands in the stands, not to even grade the bands, but just to be able to send a sheet home with a band director and say, well, you can clean up all your articulations, a little bit. You're having a problem with this particular technique. You need to work on this marching technique here. Something to bring the educational aspect of it. See, there's no educational value in what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? What most of our bands doing. All it's about is showmanship. And they're not getting any feedback. And $10,000. One thing about Dr. Myers at Norfolk State, when we started going down there, she said, I ain't trying to make no 10,000. I want you want to go take the kids down there, but spend that 10,000 on the kids and make sure that they have a good time doing that. You're not doing it for the money. Spend it on them. Give them an extra, $25 or $30 for, for a meal stipend. I mean, if you got an administrator like that, you can understand. To ride a bus all the way to Houston, Texas, from Charlotte, North Carolina, to play in a Battle of the Bands, and you get $10,000. Does that make sense? and you dress your band out, and you're looking at $3 million. Does that make sense? And the promoter of the organization walk away with $1 million, because he's already got all the sponsors. You see the lights, Coca-Cola, on and on and on, all kinds of sponsors. So what are the sponsors doing? They buying the food, so the promoter doesn't have to buy the food. You got people that's donating money for what? For transportation. I mean, we don't think. So we do it for $10,000. I think some of them they're now giving $15,000 or $20,000. That's no money. When you dress your band out, when you dress your band out and you're looking at $3 million. No, it don't make sense. But anyway, I don't get off on that. I like I said, I'm old school, and I'm history, and I'm available for anybody that want to listen. I love to talk. And on this session. And any more questions out there?
Well, I will say this. I make sure I put the link inside of the chat just to make sure that anybody else who had a question can come on in. I will say this, Doc. 2013, HBCU Band Directors Consortium, when I was with Prairie View at the time. Me and Rick were in the directors meeting, and when we were in there, it was a slew of directors from a lot of universities. And what is this? This is 2023, about 10 years ago. Wow, it's crazy. But Doc literally, because the guy from I think it was Honda was there, and Doc literally walked into the room. He stood up and he said the exact same thing he just said. And all I can remember, and Doc, correct me if I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, now please correct me. Sitting back, listening to that, because I'm for it. I was always for it. Y'all heard us say it on the show multiple occasions. All I can remember was multiple directors giving reasons as to why there should not be an adjudication. And it just kept, the cycle kept going as to, well, because X, Y, and Z, and because X, Y, and Z, and because X, Y, and Z. And Doc was like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why are we doing this to ourselves? And everybody just kept finding excuses. And for me, go ahead.
They basically didn't want it. They didn't want to put it on. They didn't want to put the stuff on the line. I said, okay, we don't. I was saying, let's put first, second, third, fourth, fifth, ninth place or whatever. Put your stuff out there on the line. But they wouldn't do it, and you'd be surprised at the band directors who didn't. Some of the band directors who got some of the better bands didn't want to chance it. At the first time, hey, we're gonna throw the Spartan Legion in the hat. And then we go this year. Next time we come back, we know what we need to do. To get it right. So nobody wanted to do it. No one wanted to do it, and I pushed that and pushed it. And of course, I'm not a favorite person of Honda because they know I don't do that. I'll never be recognized. At Honda. At a Honda Battle of the Band, because they know who I am and what I think, and I care less about that, and I care about our young people and our students and our young directors, and I try to guide them. I don't say don't go, but just say y'all, why can't we come together and say, okay, we're gonna come to Houston, or we're gonna come to the battle, but then why can't we get together and say every band needs to make $40,000? $40,000, 10 bands. You ain't talking about a whole lot of money. $400,000, that ain't no money. From what they're making and all of the sponsorships that they have. Honda selling cars. You're not really helping us. We are happy to help our HBCU band programs. You're not helping HBCU band programs. You what? You writing it off, the event anyway. And you're writing it off and call it a contribution. It ain't no contribution. You're making money. You're selling cars. But for some reason or other, we can't. We're so busy. We can't think and understand that we have the product. We have the product. So we need to be able to say something about how something goes. You own the product and you can't say nothing and you're not getting paid. Come on. It doesn't make sense. So I'm not for all of them, the Battle of the Band things. I'm going to one something's happening in Atlanta this week, and I don't even know what it is. All I know is I'm going and because the company, is sending me there. And we, they're sponsoring. We got some good companies. Consultant is a good company. They step up to the plate, and financially, and help our programs, our organizations. And a lot of the events that are going on, they're there, so they're showing consideration and for what and being involved, with the programs. Yeah. So, any more questions? If not, then I'm gonna shut down. And I got some guests in my house.
Okay. Well, let's do it this way. I know that I made sure that I made it very, very known that the link was in there. Guys, if you weren't able to come in, matter of fact, I will give you about the next 2 minutes because we have hit the 2 hour mark, man. So Doc hung with us for the full 2 hours, man. And, last time he was with us, he was like, I'm in 20 minutes and I gotta go. But he hung with us this whole 2 hours. So I truly appreciate it. This has been super great. The information that we have gotten from Doc is these are just jewels that we can all take and carry with us. Please, for the love of God, please. And I don't, and I kind of don't want to forget about the whole reason why he was on here in the first place. You got to go pick up his memoir, Maestro and Trailblazer from Slaughter. You can pick that up on Amazon.com. Pick it up, read it, get the information, learn something from it. And he's very honest when he says you can reach out to him. There are multiple times where I've called Doc. There are multiple times where I've emailed Doc. And he will talk to you. He'll help you out. He'll do whatever it is that you need. I also want to make sure that I put it out there because it was mentioned earlier. And I want to make sure that I say it or I get it right. The HBCU Band Directors Consortium, the next convention is March 29th, between March 29th and April 2nd. So please make sure you guys go out and support that. It's very great that we support the Midwest Clinic. It's good that we support all of these statewide clinics, but also support our clinic. And so again, that HBCU Band Directors Consortium, that is March 29th, between March 29th and April 2nd. So I want to make sure that I do put that out there. Go ahead.
And then there's a type of membership for it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a college band director. You can come in and, join in and send, you have the opportunity to send in, subject matters and things that you want to, us to discuss and, panel discussions. You can be on that. So we just have to talk, we just have to talk and share.
Well, Doc, I want to say this. I'm throwing my hat in the ring. I would love for our show to be able to do a live show if we can as a panel on at the HBCU Consortium. I think the conversations that we have, the conversations that we've had today, the conversations that we've had in the past, coming from younger voices, people who are or have been in the profession, people who are in there now, who have seen it, who have been through it. I think those conversations are great coming from us because one of the things that you continuously harp back on is you old school. But I think a lot of those old school ideals need to continuously be moving throughout our art form and throughout music education and what we do. And so I think it's very great. And it would be very great that if we had us there, being able to not only have the conversation with those directors in the room, but those students in the room who are music educators and who are future music educators who can get some insight on what's happening, can get inspired to do the next thing and to go to the next level. So I'm throwing my hat in the ring for the show.
I think so, man. I think so. I mean, let's talk in the future, and we'll invite you in on a Zoom call, with the executive board of directors and see can we find a slot. Maybe they can come up and set up in a room and just grab kids by the arm and how you enjoying yourself, and any recommendations on how we can improve this. I mean, I think it's a great idea. It's an excellent idea.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to hold Doc any longer because I know he has to go. He's yawning right now, so he said it's tight. I gotta shut it down. But
I've got guests in the house, so I told them I'd be about an hour, so we in the 2 hours, and I want to give them. Sure, they've already eaten dinner now, so I'll go in and join them, and get a glass of Crown and kick back.
Yes. All
right, man.
All right. So we'll let you go, Doc, man. It has been great. We love you, and we will see you next time.
All right, then. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Man, this has been super dope. It's been super amazing. I cannot say enough how insightful that was. Just to have Doc on the show, Remember, he is my director, and you know, sometimes you just kind of sit back and you just see your director as the director and the student. There have been many conversations we have had since, you know, me graduating and me being at PV, but I want to say that this is probably the most insightful that that I've ever received from him, the most insight. So I just want to give it up one time for Dr. Sanford. This has been super, super, super dope. If you all didn't get a chance to come in, it is okay. It is what it is, but because of the information that he got, I'm pretty sure he answered your question before you could even ask it, because I had a list of questions ready and he answered them, you know, right off the back. So once again, man, I appreciate Dr. Sanford for coming in, man. This is super dope. I appreciate all of you guys for hanging out with us for the last 2 hours, man. Please make sure you subscribe to the Passion Is Network, turn on notifications, man. Also, please make sure if you are in here right now, go ahead and click that like button, man. Don't even wait on it. I want to get ready to close out like we always do. So I don't know, Quan, you still there? I know I see your picture.
I'm here, bro.
Oh, okay.
Boys just listening to the knowledge, man. When you got wisdom, you be quiet.
Absolutely, man. And usually, and I ain't trying to be funny, usually you turn the camera on when you're in the car. So I didn't know if you were still there, if you were transitioning from the car to the house. So that's why I had to ask. All right, so let's go ahead and close this thing out. Maya, any final thoughts? Anything you got for the culture?
That was awesome. That was amazing. You know, it's always those unexpected drops of knowledge that speak the most volume. So I'm at a loss. I can go to bed happy.
With her Invisalign, and she is inspired right now. Look at God.
Bro, this Invisalign is terrible. It's not truly terrible, but
I know this is random, but why that over regular braces?
So, okay, I've done braces before, and I don't know. It was just kind of like, it was really a spare of the moment type of thing. I was like, I'm just going to do it. So really, Sophie, the culprit, chewed up my retainer. And yeah, that it was just a spare of the moment. And I was just like, well, I've done retainers before, so I might as well, as opposed to walking around with braces in my mouth. So
got you. Yeah. All right. Quan, any final thoughts? Anything you got for the culture?
Well, I mean, as Maya said, you know, I'm truly inspired as well, but I was asking those specific questions because you and I, we've had conversations, and for all the band directors that teach in urban areas, sometimes it can be very discouraging, you know, to say the least, on being a band director overall. It can be very, you know, disheartening because sometimes the product, the work that you're putting in, sometimes you don't see the product. And I know we've had discussions on here basically stating, you know, there's no band, you know, bad band directors and so forth and so on, which I understand that portion. But we also have to take into consideration and tell the truth. Sometimes there's just bad situations. So sometimes because it's bad situations, you don't get the product that you want all the time. And sometimes, you know, that plagues with you, you know, you as a person. And so I was asking those questions specifically because there are times when I question myself. But if a great band director who's accomplished the things that he's accomplished basically said, bro, I have my human moments. And even in the midst of my human moments, I still go ahead and do what I feel like that I'm called to do. So, I mean, I just feel like that's my story, you know, as well. The only difference is he's a little bit older and I'm a little bit younger, but the results will still be the same.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. One of the things that I will definitely say, so first of all, I want to once again say again that this was super dope. From top to bottom, it was great to have him on. It's always great for me to converse with him anyway, but to be able to get this insight from him has just been super dope. To be able to hear the stories that he has in his mental capacity, I think is super dope. Also, please make sure you guys go pick up the book of Maestro and Trailblazer from Slaughter, his memoirs. I know I have mine on the way, and I'm definitely going to crack it open and make sure I read it from cover to cover. That's something I'm definitely looking forward to. But the other half of that is I found it very, very interesting, man. Just to hear some of the things that he had to say that kind of paralleled some of the things that I truly believe in and some of the things that I have tried that have worked for me and that have been successful. So it lets me know that me as an educator is in good company, man. I've always, or many times I've, talked to professors and talked to directors and have found that, a lot of the things that they have done, I have done in practice by accident, and it's worked for me. And so it really makes me feel good to know that, the way that I approach what I do is on the right track of some of the greats, man. So once again, man, shout out to Dr. Sanford, man. This has been a true joy, a true blessing, and I wouldn't trade it for anything, man. So I thank everybody for joining us tonight, man. If you're going to watch it on Playback, you can go ahead and click that like button while you're watching on Playback. Before you leave out of here, make sure you click that like button before you leave out of here. Subscribe to the Passengers Network and turn on your notifications. Yes, Blastissimo, he has used that terminology ever since I was an undergrad, and it has not changed. But yeah, man, this has been a super great episode, a super dope episode. I appreciate all of you guys for joining us, and we will see you all next week.